Right now, millions of people are scrolling through hundreds of new shows, new releases, critically acclaimed series everyone's talking about, and they're choosing to rewatch The Office for the ninth time. Not because they forgot how it ends, not because there's nothing else to watch, but because something inside them needed that, and not the new thing. And if you've ever done this, you're not lazy. You're not boring. You're actually responding to a psychological signal most people never stop to understand. So here's the real question. Why does your brain sometimes reject the new, the exciting, the unknown, and crave something it already knows every word of? Why does familiarity feel better than discovery? Most people would say it's just a habit. But psychology says it's much deeper than that. It's a window into how your mind processes stress, safety, identity, and even emotional regulation. And the reason you rewatch isn't one size fits all. There are actually 4 distinct psychological types, for different mindsets, that drive this behavior. And each one reveals something surprisingly personal about how you're wired. Let's break them down. Psychologists call this pattern repetition consumption, the deliberate choice to revisit content you've already experienced. And it's not a failure to explore. It's a cognitive strategy. Your brain is constantly managing something called your cognitive load, the total amount of mental processing you're doing at any given moment. New content increases that load. It demands focus, emotional investment, unpredictability. Familiar content lowers it. It lets your brain rest while still giving you stimulation. But the reason you need that rest? That depends on which of these 4 types you are. Type 1, the comfort seeker. This is the person who comes home after a long, draining day and immediately puts on a show they've seen a dozen times. They're not watching it. Not really. They're using it. Psychologically, this is called self-soothing through predictability. When your day has been full of uncertainty, difficult conversations, tough decisions, things you couldn't control, your brain craves an environment where it knows exactly what happens next. That familiar show becomes an emotional anchor. The jokes land where you expect. The characters behave the way you remember. Nothing shocks you. And in that predictability, your nervous system finally gets permission to relax. The comfort seeker doesn't rewatch out of boredom. They rewatch because the world was too unpredictable today, and they need something to feel safe. Type 2, the emotional regulator. This type is a little different. They're not just calming down. They're feeling something specific on purpose. There's a scene in a show that makes them cry, a moment that makes them laugh without fail, a character arc that fills them with hope, and they go back to it, not randomly, but because they need that exact emotion right now. Psychologists call this affect regulation, the process of managing your emotional state. And rewatching is one of the safest, most controlled ways to do it. Think about it. In real life, you can't control when you'll feel inspired or moved or at peace. But in a show you've already seen, you know exactly when that moment comes. You can skip to it. You can sit in it. You can replay it. The emotional regulator uses familiar content like an emotional playlist, curated, intentional, and deeply personal. Type 3, the identity anchorer. This one is the most overlooked and possibly the most powerful. Some people rewatch shows not for the story, but because the show is connected to a version of themselves they miss. Maybe you watched it during college, when life felt simpler. Maybe you watched it with someone you've since lost touch with. Maybe it reminds you of a time when you felt more like yourself. This is rooted in what psychologists call nostalgic bonding, the brain's tendency to attach identity and meaning to repeated emotional experiences. That show isn't just entertainment anymore. It's a timestamp, a bookmark in the story of your life. The identity anchorer rewatches because pressing play isn't about the show. It's about reconnecting with who they were when they first watched it. And that's not weakness. That's one of the most human things a person can do. Type 4, the quiet recharger. This is the person who could watch something new. They have the time. They have the energy. But they choose the familiar anyway, because new content requires a kind of social and emotional labor they're not willing to spend right now. New shows come with pressure. People recommend them. People want to talk about them. There are expectations. You have to watch this. And for the quiet recharger, that pressure turns entertainment into an obligation. This is connected to what's known as decision fatigue. Every day, your brain makes thousands of micro-decisions. By the time you sit down to relax, the last thing you want is another choice that matters. So the quiet recharger removes the decision entirely. They pick something they already love, press play, and let their mind go still. It's not avoidance. It's preservation. Now here's the part most people don't see. All 4 of these types, the comfort seeker, the emotional regulator, the identity anchorer, the quiet recharger. They look different on the surface, but underneath, they share a single truth. They're all responding to the same thing: emotional overspending. Rewatching familiar content is not a sign of being boring or unadventurous. It's your mind choosing restoration over stimulation. It's a psychological recovery strategy, one your brain developed long before streaming services existed. Which one of those types are you?